Two souls love you. This is not poetry. This is a psychological fact. One love stands in the light, speaks in warmth, and feels familiar. The other waits in the shadow, silent but powerful, influencing your choices long before you are aware of it. Most people believe love arrives from the outside, but what truly binds you is what awakens within. The first soul loves you in ways you recognize. It mirrors your conscious self, your values, your ambitions, the image you try to maintain. This love supports who you believe you are. It comforts you. It reassures you. It says you are good as you are. And because of this, it feels safe, predictable, almost obvious. But the second soul loves you differently. It does not ask for permission. It does not announce itself. It speaks through attraction, obsession, discomfort, and longing. This soul is drawn not to your strengths, but to your unfinished parts. It loves what you deny, what you hide, what you have buried under reason and morality. And this is why its presence feels unsettling. The shocking secret is this. The second soul is closer to your truth than the first. You feel it when you are drawn to someone who disrupts your peace rather than preserves it. When love awakens fear instead of comfort. When connection exposes wounds instead of healing them immediately. This soul does not love you to soothe you. It loves you to change you. Most people reject this love. They label it toxic, irrational, or dangerous. But what they are truly rejecting is the part of themselves that this love reflects. Because this second soul holds a mirror not to who you want to be, but to who you are becoming. This love reveals your shadow, the traits you were taught to suppress to be accepted, your anger, your hunger, your vulnerability, your desire for power, depth, intensity. The first soul loves your mask. The second soul loves what the mask was designed to hide. And here is where suffering begins. When you choose only the safe love, you may find peace, but you will also find stagnation. When you choose only the disruptive love, you may find transformation, but you will also face chaos. The human struggle is not choosing between these loves. It is integrating what they represent, because the shocking secret is not that one soul is dangerous. The secret is that both souls live within you. One represents your adapted self, shaped by society, survival, and approval. The other represents your authentic self, raw, instinctive, unfinished. Love appears in your life to force a dialogue between these two. That is why love feels overwhelming. It is not about the other person. It is about the internal conflict they awaken. You do not fall in love accidentally. You fall into encounters that expose psychological imbalance. Love reveals where you are divided. It shows you where you are whole and where you are fragmented. True maturity in love does not mean choosing comfort over depth or chaos over safety. It means becoming conscious enough to recognize which soul is speaking and why. When you integrate the shadow instead of projecting it, love stops being a battlefield and becomes a path. The moment you stop asking, who should I love, and start asking, what part of me is asking to be seen, love transforms from confusion into clarity. Two souls love you. One confirms who you are. The other demands who you must become. And only when you face both honestly does love stop shocking you and start awakening you. Love is not an event that happens to you from the outside, nor is it a random force assigned by fate. It is an eternal psychological encounter that unfolds within the depths of your own mind long before it appears in another person. What you experience as love is the activation of something already living inside you. The other person does not create it, they awaken it. This is why love feels inevitable, overwhelming, and deeply personal. It touches areas of the psyche that logic cannot reach, because it is not governed by reason, but by inner necessity. When you encounter someone who feels significant, it is not because they perfectly match your conscious preferences. It is because they resonate with unconscious material within you. Love arises when another person embodies traits, wounds, or potentials that your psyche is ready to confront. Attraction is rarely about what is visible. It is about what is symbolically familiar. You are drawn to what mirrors your inner conflicts, your unmet needs, and your hidden desires. In this way, love becomes a psychological meeting point between who you believe you are and who you have not yet allowed yourself to become. This explains why love often feels irrational. You may feel connected to someone who challenges your values, disrupts your peace, or contradicts your plans. From the outside, the connection makes little sense. Internally, however, it is precise. The psyche does not seek comfort, it seeks balance and wholeness. Love emerges to correct an inner imbalance, to bring neglected aspects of the self into awareness. The intensity you feel is proportional to how deeply those aspects have been buried. What people often call destiny is actually projection. You project your inner world onto another person and then experience it as if it exists independently of you. This projection gives love its magical quality. The beloved seems extraordinary, almost unreal, because they carry parts of your own psyche that you have disowned or not yet integrated. You do not fall in love with who they are. You fall in love with what they represent within you. When this projection is strong, love feels sacred. When it collapses, disillusionment follows. Pain in love is not caused by the other person's behavior alone. It comes from the shattering of unconscious expectations. When the person can no longer carry the image you placed upon them, the psyche experiences loss, confusion, and grief. This pain is often misinterpreted as betrayal or failure, when in truth it is the return of projected material back to the self. Love hurts because it forces you to reclaim what you gave away unconsciously. Understanding love as an internal psychological encounter changes the way you relate to it. Instead of asking why someone affects you so deeply, you begin to ask what part of you is being activated. Instead of seeing love as something that happens to you, you recognize it as something that happens within you. This awareness does not remove the intensity of love, but it gives it meaning. Love becomes a path of self-knowledge rather than a mystery imposed by fate. When approached consciously, love stops being a force that controls you and becomes a dialogue with your own inner world. Love reflects the conscious self, while the other reveals the shadow, and this division is at the heart of why love can feel both comforting and deeply disturbing at the same time. The love that reflects the conscious self aligns with how you see yourself and how you want to be seen. It supports your values, your identity, and the story you tell about who you are. This love feels familiar because it affirms what is already known. It mirrors your sense of order, your moral framework, and your social mask. In its presence, you feel understood, validated, and stable. It reassures you that your current self is acceptable, even admirable. This form of love is often described as healthy, safe, or right. It fits neatly into your life and confirms your expectations. It does not threaten your self-image. Instead, it strengthens it. You can explain it logically. You can justify it to others. This love flows smoothly because it does not demand deep internal change. It operates within the boundaries of consciousness where control and predictability exist. Yet, despite its comfort, this love alone can feel incomplete, as if something vital is missing beneath the surface. The other love emerges from a very different place. It does not reflect who you believe you are, but exposes what you have denied. This love is drawn to your shadow, the aspects of yourself that were rejected, suppressed, or deemed unacceptable. It awakens emotions you thought you had mastered and desires you believed were gone. In its presence, you may feel confused, anxious, or even afraid. This love does not soothe the ego, it destabilizes it. It disrupts your sense of identity and challenges the control you work so hard to maintain. You are often attracted to this love without understanding why. It can feel obsessive, intense, and irrational. It pulls you toward people who provoke strong reactions rather than calm assurance. This is not because the love itself is destructive, but because it touches parts of the psyche that have been locked away. The shadow does not appear gently. It forces itself into awareness through emotional intensity. This love confronts you with traits you were taught to suppress: neediness, aggression, vulnerability, longing, ambition, or chaos. The tension between these two loves creates inner conflict. One confirms the self you know, the other demands acknowledgement of the self you avoid. Many people attempt to eliminate the shadow love by labeling it wrong or unhealthy, while clinging exclusively to the love that feels safe. Others abandon stability entirely in pursuit of intensity. Both responses are forms of imbalance. The psyche does not seek one love over the other, it seeks integration. When the shadow is ignored, it does not disappear. It influences choices unconsciously, often sabotaging relationships that remain purely on the surface. When the shadow is confronted without awareness, it can overwhelm and destabilize. The purpose of this dual experience of love is not to choose between light and darkness, but to recognize that both belong to the same psyche. Love reveals where you are divided within yourself. Conscious love shows who you are. Shadow love shows who you have refused to be. The most disturbing attraction often carries the deepest truth because it bypasses logic and speaks directly to the unconscious. It does not arrive politely or explain itself in ways that make sense to the rational mind. Instead, it unsettles you, disrupts your emotional balance, and challenges the image you hold of yourself. This attraction feels dangerous not because it is inherently harmful, but because it threatens the structures you have built to feel safe. It awakens something that was deliberately silenced. Disturbing attraction usually emerges where there is inner repression. The psyche is drawn to what it lacks, but even more strongly to what it has denied. When an attraction feels unsettling, it is often because it activates traits, desires, or emotions that contradict your conscious identity. You may pride yourself on control and feel drawn to someone chaotic. You may see yourself as independent yet feel magnetized by someone who awakens dependency. The discomfort comes from the contradiction, not the attraction itself. It exposes a split within you. This type of attraction resists moral explanation. You may judge it, fear it, or try to rationalize it away, yet it persists. That persistence is the clue. The unconscious does not respond to arguments, it responds to necessity. What disturbs you is often what demands integration. The attraction is not asking to be acted upon blindly, but to be understood deeply. It is pointing toward an inner truth that has not been consciously lived. People often mistake disturbing attraction for self-destruction. While it can become destructive if acted out unconsciously, its origin is not chaos but compensation. The psyche uses intensity to draw attention to imbalance. When a part of you has been ignored for too long, it returns with force. This is why disturbing attraction feels overwhelming. It carries the weight of everything that has been suppressed. The intensity is proportional to the depth of repression. There is also fear involved. Not fear of the other person, but fear of transformation. Disturbing attraction threatens to change you. It challenges your routines, beliefs, and self-concept. It asks questions you have avoided. Who are you without your defenses? What remains if your certainties dissolve? These questions are destabilizing, so the mind labels the attraction as wrong, unhealthy, or irrational. In doing so, it avoids confronting the truth it carries. The deepest truths are rarely comfortable because they dismantle illusions. Disturbing attraction strips away the narrative of who you think you are and reveals who you might become. It exposes contradictions between your conscious values and your unconscious needs. This does not mean every disturbing attraction should be pursued, but it does mean it should be listened to. Ignoring it does not restore balance. It drives the truth further into the unconscious, where it continues to influence behavior indirectly when examined consciously. Disturbing attraction becomes a source of insight rather than compulsion. It reveals unmet needs, disowned traits, and unresolved conflicts. It shows where growth is possible and where fear has limited self-understanding. The truth it carries is not about the other person, but about you. What disturbs you is often what completes you, not by possession, but by awareness. The shocking secret is that both loving souls exist within you, and this realization unsettles because it dismantles the comforting belief that love is something that happens only between people. One soul longs for harmony, stability, and reassurance. The other craves depth, intensity, and transformation. You experience them as external forces because the mind prefers simplicity, but in truth they are inner movements of the psyche, expressing different needs at different stages of your development. The first loving soul is shaped by adaptation. It forms as you learn how to belong, how to be accepted, how to survive within family, culture, and society. This soul loves what is familiar and predictable. It seeks safety in connection and validation and mutual understanding. When this soul loves, it desires continuity. It wants relationships that preserve identity rather than challenge it. Through this soul, love feels calm, grounding, and affirming. It tells you that you are enough as you are. The second loving soul emerges from what was left behind in the process of adaptation. It carries the parts of you that could not be expressed openly, the instincts that were discouraged, the emotions that felt too intense, too inconvenient, or too dangerous. This soul loves with urgency and hunger. It is not interested in maintaining order. It is interested in wholeness. When this soul loves, it does not ask whether the connection is practical or sensible. It asks whether it is alive. This love feels disruptive because it speaks from places you have not fully explored. You often experience conflict between these two loves because they seem to want different things. One pulls you toward peace, the other toward intensity. One seeks reassurance, the other seeks truth. When projected outward, this conflict appears as choosing between different partners, different paths, different versions of love. Internally, however, it is a dialogue between two parts of the same self. The pain arises not because one is wrong, but because they have not been brought into awareness together. Most people unconsciously identify with only one soul. They build a life around safety and suppress their hunger for depth, or they chase intensity and reject stability as boring or limiting. In both cases, something essential is missing. What is denied does not disappear. It continues to influence desires, dreams, and choices from beneath the surface. This is why patterns repeat in relationships. The psyche is attempting to reconcile what has been split. The shocking nature of this secret lies in responsibility. If both loving souls exist within you, then love is no longer something that simply happens to you. It is something you participate in unconsciously or consciously. The people you are drawn to reflect which soul is currently seeking expression. The intensity you feel reveals the imbalance you carry. Love becomes a message rather than a mystery. When you recognize both souls within, love stops being a battlefield between comfort and chaos. It becomes an opportunity for integration. The goal is not to silence one soul in favor of the other, but to allow them to inform each other. Stability gains depth, intensity gains consciousness. In this union, love no longer fractures you. It aligns you with yourself. Conflict in love arises from inner division, not from the other person, though it is almost always experienced as if the other were the cause. When tension appears in a relationship, the mind instinctively looks outward for explanation. It focuses on words spoken, actions taken, or needs unmet. Yet beneath these surface triggers lies a deeper struggle taking place within the individual. The relationship becomes the stage upon which unresolved inner contradictions are acted out. Every person enters love with a divided psyche. There is the part that seeks closeness and reassurance, and the part that fears loss of autonomy. There is the desire to be fully seen, and the terror of being truly known. These opposing forces coexist, often unconsciously, and love activates them simultaneously. The other person does not create this division, they expose it. Intimacy brings internal conflicts into sharp focus because it removes the distance that normally keeps them hidden. When one part of the self desires connection and another part resists vulnerability, the resulting tension is projected outward. The partner becomes the symbol of this struggle. They are experienced as too distant or too demanding, too controlling or too indifferent. In reality, these perceptions reflect an inner argument. One side of the psyche wants closeness, while the other demands protection. The conflict feels interpersonal, but its origin is intrapsychic. This is why similar conflicts repeat across different relationships. The faces change, but the patterns remain. If conflict were truly caused by the other person, it would disappear when the person changes. Instead, the same themes reappear: abandonment, suffocation, mistrust, disappointment. Love becomes frustrating not because partners are flawed, but because the individual has not reconciled their own opposing needs. The unconscious seeks resolution through repetition. Inner division is often formed early, shaped by experiences where love felt conditional or unpredictable. The psyche learns to split. One part adapts to secure connection, another withdraws to avoid pain. Both strategies remain active in adulthood. When love appears, these parts clash. One seeks reassurance, the other braces for betrayal. The partner becomes the battlefield for this unresolved tension. Blame offers temporary relief because it avoids self-confrontation. If the other is the problem, the inner conflict remains untouched. Yet blame does not resolve tension, it intensifies it. The more the inner division is denied, the more fiercely it is projected. Arguments escalate, misunderstandings deepen, and intimacy erodes. The relationship suffers under the weight of an unconscious struggle that was never addressed. Understanding that conflict arises from inner division changes the meaning of disagreement. Conflict becomes information rather than failure. It points toward unintegrated parts of the self demanding attention. Instead of asking what the other person is doing wrong, The more revealing question becomes what internal need is in opposition. Love challenges individuals to recognize their own contradictions and take responsibility for them. When inner division is acknowledged, conflict loses its destructive power. Differences can be discussed without projection. Needs can be expressed without accusation. The other person is no longer required to carry what belongs to the self. Love then shifts from a cycle of reaction to a space of awareness where conflict no longer destroys connection but reveals the path toward inner coherence. True love requires integration, not escape from discomfort, because love is not designed to protect you from inner tension, but to bring it into awareness. Many people approach love as a refuge, a place where pain should disappear and uncertainty should be soothed. When discomfort arises, they assume something is wrong and search for ways to avoid it. Yet discomfort in love is not a sign of failure. It is a signal that different parts of the self are coming into contact. Love exposes what has been divided, and integration is the process of allowing those divisions to be seen and reconciled. Discomfort often appears when love challenges the identity you have carefully constructed. You may discover emotions that contradict your self-image, needs that feel inconvenient, or fears you believed you had outgrown. The instinct is to retreat, to numb, or to replace the relationship with one that feels easier. This escape preserves comfort but reinforces fragmentation. What is avoided does not resolve itself, it waits. True love does not remove discomfort, because doing so would mean leaving essential parts of the psyche untouched. Integration means staying present with discomfort without acting it out destructively or suppressing it. It involves recognizing that opposing feelings can exist at the same time. You can desire closeness and still fear dependency. You can love deeply and still feel anger or doubt. Integration allows these contradictions to coexist consciously rather than competing unconsciously. When discomfort is met with awareness, it becomes informative rather than overwhelming. Escaping discomfort often takes subtle forms. It can appear as idealization, where one partner is expected to fulfill every unmet need. It can appear as withdrawal, where emotional distance is used to regain a sense of control. It can also appear as constant change, where novelty replaces depth. These strategies reduce tension temporarily, but prevent the psyche from integrating what the discomfort is revealing. Love remains shallow not because it lacks intensity, but because it lacks honesty. True love demands the courage to face what arises internally without immediately assigning blame. When discomfort is projected outward, the partner becomes the problem. When it is turned inward consciously, it becomes an opportunity for growth. Integration requires self-responsibility, the willingness to ask what part of the self is reacting and why. This process is not comfortable, but it is transformative. It replaces unconscious repetition with conscious choice. As integration deepens, love becomes more stable, not because conflict disappears, but because it is no longer feared. Discomfort loses its threat when it is understood as a messenger rather than an enemy. The relationship becomes a space where complexity is allowed, where light and shadow can exist without fragmentation. True love is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to remain present within it, allowing the self to become more whole rather than more defended. So understand this clearly. Love is not meant to rescue you from yourself, nor is it meant to keep you comfortable forever. Love arrives to reveal where you are divided and to invite you toward wholeness. When you stop running from discomfort and begin listening to it, love changes its role. It no longer confuses or controls you. It teaches. What once felt like chaos becomes guidance, and what once felt like pain becomes meaning. The deepest connection is not found in perfection or certainty, but in the courage to integrate all that you are. When you meet love with awareness instead of escape, it stops breaking you and starts completing you.